Talafalava, my name is Lani.
My name is Livingston.
And welcome to the 20th episode of the Reads with Rosa podcast. Now, on behalf of our sister Rosa, we want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's shown love and support since this podcast's inception on April the 1st earlier this year. If you've been tuning in on Google Podcasts or Spotify or showing love on Facebook, IG and Twitter, on behalf of our sister, we want to say a huge thank you.
If you're tuning in for the first time, make sure to click that like button, leave a comment or subscribe on the channel.
Yes. Again, thank you for all the love and support. Now, without further ado, sit back and enjoy this week's episode of the Reads with Rosa podcast. Let's go.
Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. Read the Rosa podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know, multifaceted and humble, taking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Make you strive, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. With my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's a grand slam. I'm out. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce today's guest. He is a fellow educator, a creative musician, composer, a rugby coach. He's an orator. Welcome to the show, Sammy Seau. It's such an honor to have you here, bro. How are you?
Hey, malole so from Nuia Malelangi Mama Fatal Fatuma Fafeloya to for ile. La Falum Longum La Fonga Netula, the Fiafi Bolaso, Felava Le Colope, Mavatu Nei, Fatal Noanga Lungun, or Malosi Fatal Knossi, Malole so from Nuia, Malofo so from Nuia, Rosa, Malolita Wata, Malofo Malanga Manuia Natu Atunu Mamau, where Alalai. Thank you for the introduction. Didn't need that fancy introduction for me, but thank you. Just really grateful for the opportunity. Awesome to be able to share some wisdom and hopefully have a really good chat tonight, and just really get to share some insight into both of our lives, really, because we both share the same story. We both share a similar background, and we both can empathize with our journey, our malanga so far. So thank you very much, Rosa.
It's good to have you here, Sammy Malo Soifua. Can you introduce yourself? I mean, I know some of our listeners, the regulars, will be like, oh, there's the bro, there's Sammy, there's Sammy from Twitter. But, like for those who may not know who you are, can you give us a little introduction about, who you are, where you're from, where are your roots?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you very much for the question. I think it's just important. I think whenever we talk to kids and we meet new kids at school, we always ask them to stand up and introduce themselves. So we always say, we spell it like the Maoli version of water. So why? So who am I? And so we usually get them up, stand them up, and they introduce themselves, their name, where they're from, their background, and what they bring with them. Because for us, it's really important. Like you've just said, it's really important for us to know who we are. So, Sammy Seau. I'm from Invercargill, deep south of New Zealand, born and raised to two beautiful parents who hail from the village of Whaletangaloa i Safune, i Savai. And my beautiful mother is from Vaiala and i Whalelatai. And we also have a part of our family i Ale Bata as well. And so, that's where my family's roots are. That's where my whasinomanga comes from, and just super proud to be Samoan. And my parents who have both passed on, the late Tuliatu Moana Laulala Tosiao, who is my namesake, he passed on a few years ago, about 7 years ago now, and Mum passed away 4 years ago during my last year of university, and her name is Elenise Lisepa Saui Malayangalumana Saipa Ia Mafana. I have 5 sisters, so I've grown up quite having a soft part of my heart for my sisters. 5 sisters. Helena Alitasi, and she's married and has 3 beautiful nephews that are starting to grow and annoy me. I've got my second elder sister, Mitai Venus Seau, and then my other sisters, us bottom four, we call ourselves the Fantastic Four because there's a bit of an age gap between the top two and us bottom four. And so I've got my older sister, Maele Mary, who is also an educator herself in early childhood. I have my sister just above me. Her name is Celissa Cleopatra. And then my baby sister, the wiki of our family, Tapuono Mai Nise. So those are my 5 sisters. I'm now based in Wellington, teaching after studying in Otago and having done my schooling in the South Island. And into my 4th year of teaching makes me feel very, very old. And considering I'm only 25, but man, it makes you feel way older. And you'll understand that as well.
Man, wow, that was great. Honestly, Sammy, I didn't even know that you had 5 sisters. I thought you had 3 sisters, but I'm glad that you explained that and broke it down. So shout out to Sammy's family, his sisters, rest in love to mum and dad. I was wondering about Invercargill. Like, for those who don't know, like, how would you describe Invercargill? Being a Samoan, a Pacific Islander, growing up in Invercargill, what is that like? What does that look like? What did that look like when you were coming through as a youngster?
I think that's a really, really big question that I'm still yet to know the answer of. I think as a young person, having journeyed from, being so familiar and so, what's the word for it? Like so ingrained in the culture and the environment and the community, the people there. I grew up thinking that everything was just normal. Like, what was happening was what was supposed to happen. Meaning, growing up in a very Pākehā, Europeanized, Eurocentric education and society and systems. Growing up in a place where people were openly racist. We had our rural community, our farmer community, who had their worldview and their view of the world and values, and just seeing that clash, I think was a really big thing. That having been 25 now, and thinking back to having left home, I can't believe that that's all I knew and accepted was that it's normal and it's okay for people to be openly, culturally and ethnically insensitive. Just thinking of some cases where people will be smashing out some white power music around, and you got your mongrel mobs clashing, and people going, "Oh, it's the mongrel mobs' fault." But actually, why do we have that in the first place? Why is it normalized to see and accepted behavior? And so, I think if I was to describe it in Invercargill, I'd say it's a place where you can get lost. It's definitely a place as a young Pasifika person, you can definitely lose your culture, lose your identity, lose your sense of self, or have a false sense of self. I think that's a good way to put it. So that's Invercargill. Other than that, it's a place of opportunity. It's a place of dreams. It's a place where a lot of our community, our Pasifika and our migrant community, go for seasonal work and opportunities to find blessings for their families. But if you're a young person growing up in that place, it's really tough.
At what point did you realize or start to understand racism? Was it after you left Invercargill to go to university, or was it in your last year of high school? Like, at what point? I mean, obviously reflecting and looking back now, you kind of piece it together, right? But at any point prior to going to Otago, were you kind of starting to perhaps look around and go, hang on a minute, that didn't sound right? Or even in school, perhaps, like, wait, did that teacher really just say that? Or, yeah, do you know, like...
Yeah, that's a really good question. I like that question because it has so many different angles you can approach it on. Like, you can come from the ignorant angle and say, no, I just completely ignored it. Like, I knew that it was bad, but I just chose to not accept that was existing. The other angle that you can come in with is being the activist and the hard out, passionate.
Right.
Nah, that's no good. Kind of like Abigail, like kind of like your niece, how she went in on her school for what they did to her. But also there's another angle where you can just sit on the fence and just see everything around you just crumble. See other things be accepted, see behaviors be accepted, see people crumble because of what's happening, and then not do anything about it because you're sitting on the fence. You're too scared of saying something to offend someone, but then again, you're too scared what people might think of you, the perception of you, if you were to get involved. And so I think I only started to question it in my last year of school. Growing up, I definitely was the ignorant one, where I knew that it was there, but I just chose not to openly call it out, because of the fear of being ostracized, being marginalized, because of A, being a person of color, but also B, trying to call out something that's so normalized. And then it was my last year of school, actually, when we were applying for scholarships for university. I was applying for scholarships, and we were just talking about it in our PE class, and I remember a kid going, "Oh, you know, if Sammy can get a scholarship for being, you know, a Pacific Islander, can I get a scholarship for being like an 8th Māori, or a 6th or 32nd Māori? Can I claim that I'm from Ngāti, you know, they're like Ngai Tahu, or Kati Māmoe or something, where there's a lot of European influence in the way that those generations have developed." And I remember the teacher's response was just, if you believe that you identify and descend from that line, then apply for it, and apply for their scholarships. And so they were like thinking, oh, so Sammy's got 10,000 from the PI scholarship, he's got 2,000 from academic excellence, he's got 2,000 times 3 years from our Invercargill licensing trust, he's got all these other grants and things coming through. But what about me as a European person? You know, that's what they were questioning. And for me, that's when I started to click, like, actually, something isn't right. Something's not right. Yeah. And then that's when I made sense of it, man. These guys they've got a whole heap of learning to do, like a whole heap of learning. And it was quite scary that, you know, we all went to university together, and they actually changed. I think the university experience helped them realize that they're not just living in the silo environment where a certain behavior and worldview and values are accepted. They're actually going to a place where people's purpose of going to university was to question, was to seek in being enlightened, was to seek in engaging with diversity, not only in sexuality, but also a diverse ethnic backgrounds as well, and especially in group assignments and things like that. So I think university was good for them, and I hope, fingers crossed, touch wood, that all those learnings, because the last thing you want is for them to experience all that amazing stuff and interacting with their communities and people and getting to make new friends and new beginnings, to go return to Invercargill and it's the same old behavior. And so, yeah, it was definitely that phase in trying to, in leaving school, that made me open my eyes up first, and then start to question when I went to university and would return home. You know how you have semester break?
Yeah.
Like going home every time, I'd take that one extra thing of, man, that person's been doing that our whole time I've known him, man.
Yeah,
like, you know, you get a bit more perceptive and a bit more aware,
Right. You mentioned, like, you know, perhaps you were ignorant, and I don't know if you can, I don't know if you can call yourself ignorant. I mean, I feel like now as a teacher, when we look back on, you know, our younger days in high school and whatnot, and you're still a young teacher, I don't know if you can call yourself ignorant, because I feel like, you know, society, the systemic, you know, the roots and of all the racism and injustices, and, you know, the way that marginalized communities are treated. It's like, I know my parents sent me to school not to question anything, do you know, like, because they go, go to school, listen to the teacher is always right, do you know? And like, I'm not saying, you know, we should have known better, but I just think, like, our culture as well, the fa'aloalo, the respect that you respect your elders, whether it's, you know, for many of us, it was the white teacher standing there. And I don't think you're ignorant. I just think that, you know, culturally, you know, culture has a part to play in that, and that we're you know, we're told to just do this and don't question it. And then, because it's, you know, if we think about the journey that our parents have taken to, you know, from the islands, from Samoa to New Zealand, and the jobs that they went into, it's that whole hierarchy and that whole listen to your managers, listen to your supervisors, you just go with, right? And even in the back of your mind, like, even if it is, I kind of sense something wrong here, I don't know, I wouldn't call you ignorant when I'm listening to your your story, I just think it's like, you know, it's fear of speaking up. It's because we've been told, just you don't question, you don't answer back, you don't do that because you're just sent to school to get an education, which is for many of our parents something that they were not able to get. You know, a lot of our parents, you know, from a young age were already working and didn't get to finish school. So I wouldn't call you ignorant. I just think, you know, listening, I can totally get why you wouldn't say something. And then, of course, then going away to university, it just really opens up your thinking. I wanted to actually ask, were you like in culture shock when you went to Otago? Like,
No.
were you like,
Yeah, I was all like, "Whoa, there are brown people here!" Like,
you're
whoa,
like, what's
there's
going
some
on
oh my gosh, there are Pacific Island people here. Like, there's a Pacific Island Center. There's a Pacific Welcome. There's, you know, all the stuff. I was like, oh my gosh. And if anything, that really cemented me. You know, like really made me find my feet. It's funny how they say, you know, like what is it called? Your place in the world. To kind of find your place in the world, which is like an Otago thing. And I think I really found my place in the world. You know, take your place in the world in my identity as a Samoan in New Zealand society, as a Samoan person who is seeking out an education for a future, as a Samoan person who was keen to learn the language and the culture that growing up I'd never really had the opportunity to take on, and then also actually just meeting people like me, you know, like your brother, like Lisa, and meeting Angasiata and meeting the other boys of our Five Clyde clan, and the Osa family as well. But yeah, I think it really just opened up my eyes that actually there are people like me out there, and that's it kind of helped me not feel lonely, because when I first went to Otago, oh man, I was low-key like homesick, hiding in my room at my hostel. You know, the whole of O week and first semester, I just hid in my room, would go to rugby training, go home, go to class, go home. And yeah, but then once I really started to find my feet and find my group of those boys and find people like me, man, that really helped to settle the culture shock and kind of just realize, actually, just be who you are. Just accept being who you are. Just accept being unique and being yourself. And because not everyone is going to be your cup of tea, you know, and you won't always be with people who you'll agree with, but you need to surround yourself with people who are like-minded and have a common goal and a common purpose. And I think that's what I really found helpful in trying to settle off that culture shock, particularly going from Invercargill, which is like Palangi Central, to Otago, the beautiful city of Dunedin.
Man, did you always want to be a teacher? Did you was it I mean, because I know that you were studying, at university, you studied, was it music and religion, right?
So yeah, no, that's good. That's a good question. So when I first started, I was actually enrolled to take a law degree.
Ooh.
Yeah, I know, and I only survived one lecture.
I survived a half a semester. I couldn't deal with the early morning lectures. It was so boring. I was just like, I had these dreams of being this, and I was like, nah. Nah.
So yeah, I only survived one lecture, and then changed to an arts degree with being a music major and a history minor. And yeah, like that's where it really started. So I took music and history all the way through, with a bit of politics in there as well, and then eventually, actually, it wasn't until second year, you know, kako auntie or Tofilau, God bless her soul. Yeah, Tofilau, she's a beautiful lady. She was the one who pulled me into the PI center. I think it was second year, and my grades weren't very good in the first semester. I think, yeah, my priorities had just gone out the window, and she kind of pulled me in and goes, man, do you think your parents would be proud of these results? Like, do you think you would be, you know, you'd be doing it for your father proud? Do you think your mum, who's in Invercargill, would be happy with your the way your priorities are at the moment? And then that really set me straight. I still had no idea what career path I was going to do. I just knew that I was at university studying, and then next minute she goes, oh, maybe you should consider teaching. I was like, what? No way. And then she goes, go talk to Christine. She's another beautiful soul as well. Go talk to Christine and see what you have to do for the masters. And then my chat with Christine was basically, you lift up your grades, you lift up your GPA, and then you'll be able to get an interview to be a teacher. And still, it hadn't sit with me like, really, like teaching, until I went into that interview. So that interview in 2016. And I'd been working like hard out the whole of third year, trying to get my grades up enough to be accepted into this master's program. And in the interview, they were like, why do you want to be a teacher? And I just sat there for about a solid like 30 seconds going, man, that's a really good question. Like, I actually don't know. I actually didn't know at the time. But then having thought about it as I left the interview and I went back to the centre to talk to Tofilao, how did it go? And I was like, yeah, it was good. I got stuck on one question though, about why do I want to be a teacher? Because if I was going to be honest, it's because you forced me to. and then she just laughed, and she goes, no, it's your calling. Don't think of it as a job. Don't think of it as something that you just get paid and turn up and do it. It's a calling. So if you get accepted into this Masters of Teaching program, you take it as a humble calling. Be fully 100% devoted to it, and just know that what we say, our words, might be our words, it might be our actions, will have an impact on a lot of young people and the generations to come through our classrooms. So that's how I became a teacher. I wasn't initially going to be a teacher, but then all it took was for those few interactions and a bit of discipline from our Auntie Tofilao to set me on that path and go, actually, I want to do it. I'm going to do it. And then next minute, Mans is teaching. I don't know why these
calling. It's your calling, bro. I mean, because I only recently just met you. I mean, I think I met you one time. I met you in Dunedin, but in terms of you had become a teacher, like I had just been following on social media, following on Twitter. And then I finally got to meet Sammy as the teacher, as the educator. And honestly, bro, it's so exciting to see just the impact that you're having just on your students in the classroom, and not just Pasifika students. You know, I've seen you tell stories of, Asian students that you teach. Like, I don't think you realize, I'm in awe of your work, bro. I see the programs that you're running. I know that you're like full on 200% into this career, into this profession, as an educator, and you really are impacting the lives of the young people at your school. Like, what are some highlights, when you think back, and, like you said, you've only been teaching 4 years, but it feels like forever. You feel like you've been in it for a long time, because, in teaching, that's what happens, I always like to say, man, when you're having fun, time flies. But we never tell the side of when you're having fun, time flies, but there's also frustrations, and there's bad days, and there's challenging days, all of that. That's what comes with teaching. So reflecting on these 4 years, like, what do you think are some of the highlights? Because I follow your music page and I see what you're doing with your students at your school, and it's awesome. There's so much going on. It's such it's like this hub for performing arts. I love it. So what are some reflections, if you think about highlights in teaching so far? Because you're not going to quit anytime soon. I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not. Man. No, that's a really good question. I like that. I like how you said reflections, because I think in order to know that you're doing any good or making some sort of impact, you've got to actually take the time to just sit down, just think, okay, take a breath, have a cup of tea, and just go, okay, what have I done? Like, what actually have I done? All these parents, their families are working multiple jobs, paying all this tax, secondary tax and whatnot, and to pay us teachers, they pay all this tax to pay us. And so I think I see myself more of a servant, and more of a servant to the people. and a servant to our community as well, especially not just our Pasifika and Maoli community in the beautiful place of Porirua, but just in society in general, like just trying to make a difference and give back to our people, and trying to fight. So, you know, in Maotutawawe, wherever you go, you'll take whatever it is with you. In some cases, someone's reputation precedes them, you know. And so I think in terms of highlights, I think some of my highlights have been just becoming more stronger in who I am as a Samoan. When I first entered teaching, I was hard out, like, okay, I just need to teach the ABC.
Yeah.
I need to do, you know, content and do this, and then I'll disappear at 3:15. But then as I started to realize that I'm a Samoan, these are young Samoan men who I was teaching at Scots College, young Pasifika boys at Scots College, who were really wanting to reach out and go, you know, Mr. Seau, can you please like come in and help us, or can you come in and guide us or mentor us? And that was probably the first highlight, was that these students actually reached out to me first without me reaching to them. The fact that they trusted me enough to approach me. I'm not an easy person to approach. Like, if you go into my school and you see people when I walk through the corridor, they look at me like I'm the Grim Reaper. They know, oh, shucks, Mr. Seau, he looks like he's on a mission, someone's in trouble, or someone's like this. But they've just got that sort of respect and mamaru for you, that sort of wharoaro as well. And that's my first highlight, is just that these beautiful young men who now play in my rugby team at Oriental Rongotai, which is weird, that they reached out to me and were vulnerable and going, hey, mister, you know, you're like us. We want you to mix and mingle with us and mentor and guide us. That was number one. Number two was probably the same set of boys at Scots College. At our my farewell dinner for our house. So we have an end of year house dinner. And so our house captain got up and he did I forgot what it's called. Is it a picture kucha or something like that? It's like they display pictures for a certain amount of walk to it.
Yeah.
He was doing one to round up his year as the leader of our house, and basing it on inspiration. That was his theme for level 3 English. And so I was shocked at the dinner. You know, my photo was up on the screen, and he was talking about me, and just some of the stuff that he said just brought a tear to the eye. Some things like, you know, he works beyond the time that a lot of teachers do. He comes in on the weekends. He's an awesome role model in the community. He's willing to be firm but fair. He's giving. He's passionate. He's got a heart for the community. He's got a heart for school. And just hearing that stuff, I was like, this is embarrassing right now. You know, like the humility side of us, that humble side is like, thank you, but this is uncomfortable around Baalangi people mostly.
Right.
But that was an awesome highlight where I realized, oh man, these guys actually look at me, like they actually look up to me. Like, who am I? They should be looking up to me as the example for them. And then the third highlight would be going to my new school and being able to just grow the culture and the passion for the language and culture at our school. And so at a town school, you know, some schools they're privileged and blessed with numbers of Samoans, enough to run a Samoan language program, as you would know. But at Scots College, there wasn't enough resourcing to run a Samoan language program. And so having gone to where I am now at Bishop Viard in Porirua, just something simple like, all right, we're going to have an umu, you know? And then all of a sudden, like, the whole community gets in. There's power in our community. There's wealth of experience and knowledge and expertise in our elders. And it's just awesome. Like that's definitely been a highlight, is seeing our culture grow, seeing students and the understanding of our culture grow, but also the passion as well. You know, when I first started, we had COVID last year, and then I had to try and prepare for Samoan Language Week over Google Meets, Google Hangouts. I had to try and have like whaikaingas for our other whenua over Google Hangouts. You know, like to do okay, you're gonna do your whakulima, and then so and so you're gonna mute yourself, and then so and so is gonna gully to you, and then you mute yourself, and then Yeah, it was like that. Or from Kanga. And so preparing for that and then seeing it come to life was probably like a highlight. Seeing the kids rock up to our first whaikakainga, all knowing what they were saying, all having written what they were saying as well. Just based off, okay, this is a structure. Just ask your parents to help you fill out the structure, and this will be your launga or your solo ava or your whakaupaia or whatever with your parents. And then when they came to our whakakainga, it was awesome, and I was like, man, this is why we do teaching. And so that's probably been my three big highlights: is one, students reaching out. B, students thinking that I'm good enough to be some sort of role model and example for them, but then C, just the passion and the love that kids have grown for our culture and language that we're both and everyone that we know are passionate about.
I love it, bro. Like, I know, yeah, like you said, humility, like being humble and all that, but it's so special to know that your students are acknowledging, like, even if you are a bit embarrassed and, I just think, yeah, I think, teachers, colleagues, they need to hear that. They need to hear it from students themselves, because I don't think you're the type of person anyway that goes around tooting their own horn, like, I think you're more about put your head down and just do the grind and do the hard work. So I love that, man. Those are some special moments. And it's interesting how you're saying, they're looking at you as a role model, but then for you, like, obviously your parents would have been some really important role models in your life, coming through. But, who are some of your role models right now, or even just someone that really sticks out in your mind who has kind of been there for you, over the past years, or even through your teaching career, like 4 years, who's someone that you've looked up to, as a role model, as a young teacher coming through the education in New Zealand?
Yeah, I love that question, man. You got some good questions, man. Good questions. I think with role models, yeah, definitely, that your parents or matua, that your matua, that your first whaiaonga, that's your first teachers. And I think a lot of people, and especially Pasifika ones, that we sometimes underappreciate the role that and the impact that they have in our lives. O le tangata monotupanga, o le tangata footman and whatsinumanga, the person and their growth and their experience growing up and the way they were brought up, that's who they're eventually going to identify as. And so, yeah, I must pay homage to my parents for the example that they set for all my 5 sisters and I, and especially in a tough place like Invercargill. In terms of role models, I think I have 1, 2, maybe 3 big role models. Number 1 would be my sister, my older sister, and she's ever since mom's passed away, she's kind of stepped into that role of the mother of us. She's old enough to be my mother. Like she's 40, in her mid 40s, and I think she was about 18, 19 when I was born, and so I've always grown up, and people have always said, "Is that your mother?" But in terms of a role model, the reason why I would say she's a role model is because she has been that second mother to me. She's been that person who's been able to sit me down, give me the hard word, just like you would to Lisa and to Sunga Whawhengainga. But also she's been able to support me, not only financially, but also through advice and whaukuanga. She's also given me an insight as to what it would be like as a family person, with her 3 boys, and just having grown up with her 3 boys as well as a youngster. And so, yeah, she's a big role model for me because she sets an example where you just grind until the wheels fall off.
Yep.
B, regardless of what happens, you just keep on trucking along, and C, that family first. Regardless of what hits the fan, regardless of what goes on in life, you're always going to have your family first. And so she's one really big role model for me. Another role model for me would be my sister. I think I put up a tweet about it the other day. My other sister, the one who came to Wellington, she's the one to number 3.
Yeah.
And her name is Ma'ele, and she's been a role model for me. Although I never told her growing up that she was a role model, I always admired that she was one who had complications growing up, with health. She went through so much adversity growing up as a young girl with health complications, but still got through school, still turned up to university and smashed out her degree that should have been 3 years, but it took her 5 to 6 years. You know, that perseverance and resilience was something that I could look up to. But also her being a teacher as well, and seeing what she was like as a teacher to when I was first starting to be told by by Tofilau to consider teaching. You know, when she started doing that, and then I started looking at my sister and asking her the questions like, "Hey, what's it like?" You know, having those real conversations, and even to this day, she's one that I really appreciate, and she still tries to keep me grounded as well. Yeah, you're doing amazing stuff, but you can always be better, and that's what I love about her, is that she's not afraid to tell me how it is. And having her here the other day, man, she was yarning our ears off, man. Like, she was here till like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, still talking to us. I was like, Allah, Loro fufonga mrosi uleo. But yeah, she's another role model. The third role model is Tofilau. Tofilau doesn't know this, but she's inspired a lot of young people. She's motivated a lot of young people from Otago, and I have to pay homage to that woman, man. Even though she's in a different city now, I'm just super grateful that I had the privilege of being able to work alongside her working with me and guiding me, holding me by the hand. And some people have that perception of Tofilau as if like they're scared of her. They live in fear of her, eh? And for me, that fear is what I love about her. You know, that fear factor. You know, she's fearless. She's like Nafanua, you know, fearless. She's a warrior. She's a pioneer. She's hardworking, and she masks a lot of pain, man. Like, she masks a lot of struggle, and particularly in an institution like Otago, she fought some battles, man. And those are some battles that we don't wish on anyone. Trying to represent and be a pioneer and role model for Pacific people, going against the status quo, against the Eurocentric university institution of Otago. And she's definitely a pioneer for Pacific people, and the growth in the number of Pasifika people at Otago is to her, man. It's a testament to her and her mahi over the 10 to 12 years that she was the manager of that PI centre. And it's also a testament of her heart for the community as well, not just in the university community, but her place in standing in the Whakasa community, her place in standing in the media, how she works on the Lekio now.
Yes. When I went home, I was just like, hey, my parents were like, "Oi, kope kile lekio, lela saule poka la mea a Tofilau." And I was like, hey, what?
Yeah.
You know, they were like giving me the whole update. I was like, we could feel like, you know, I mean, that she's loved, you know, she's known, she's just, man, that is special.
It's her and her red hat, man. That's the one, or when she starts just randomly singing. Yeah.
Here when you hear her, right? You hear her. It's like, oh.
These are the three role models and kind of mentors to me. My older sister, and my third sister, and Tofilau. That'd be big role models to me.
Is your third sister that's the teacher, is she the sister that was your soa on your journey with you know, your tatau journey to get when you got your better? Was that sister that was your soa? Tell us a little bit about that. Tell our audience a little bit about that that journey with your sister.
Yeah, I think so that was the sister, and as corny as it is, you know, I'm not too ashamed or embarrassed to admit that, you know, we felt it was fit enough to it was right. The time was right to both two teachers in our family to get there to tell together, and blessed with the la'i of Samoan. So yeah, it was an interesting journey. You'll know what the journey is like. You know, it's one of those ones that you've dreamed of for so long. You've dreamed of for so long. You've tried to get your parents' blessing many occasions, but have failed many times as well to get their okay and blessing. Trying to talk to my siblings and convince my siblings, and getting the failed fat decline there. But I think once the moment happened, I think it started from, I'm not sure what you guys did with Li au Faiva, but we had a lotu afiafi with the tufunga and the au solo the night before we started. And that was just a chance to clear up some stuff, the kula fongo for what sa for your ruenga, por le langa marufie, clearing up what meals we'd be providing. And my nerves like kicked in then. Like I was real calm, I was like, yo, kai pe ole sa? Oh, yo, 100%, yeah, all good, easy as, headphones on, focused. But as soon as that tufunga walked in and that lotu afiafi started on that Tuesday night, man, just the waterworks, just started going, and I couldn't control it, and I was having a fat sob during the bese, and yeah, it was that was kind of the nerves starting to kick in. But then once the owl first hit my back, I thought to myself, oh crap, like why am I doing this?
Right.
Like, why am I doing this? Like, why are people looking at me? Why are these people touching my back? Why is this thing hurting me? But then actually after that first session, and I first saw the va'a on the back after the first 2 hours, I was like, man, I think I can do this now. I can do it now. Like you're like, oh, yeah, actually, I think I can do that.
You got this.
Hearts. And then at the end of the first day, I was like, man, that looks cool, eh? And then I think it was the second day where the adrenaline had worn off. And so all that excitement, all the hype in that had gone. And now it was like the real time to just grind, and that was the tough day, man. And like it's a true reflection of the whole journey, as you and Lisa would know. There's not a single day where it gets any easier. It gets harder and harder as you get closer to the end. It gets harder and more tougher. But just the end result of that last session and being able to just sit up and see your family all around you, I think that was an emotional time for me. I think I sat up and I could hardly breathe because you're trying to puka for so long.
Yeah.
And then I sat up and I was like, man, the two people that I really wanted to be there weren't there. My parents, my mum and dad. I'd always dreamed of the day, oh man, I'm gonna sit up from this. My mum and dad will be sitting there somewhere, kapua'i from somewhere, and my dad will be able to compare his better to whatever I had, that kind of conversation, and then have that deeper conversation. Oh son, what was it like? How did you find your kuli, or how did you find your kapulu, or how did you find your songyaso and stuff like that? But not having to have that conversation, I think that was the real tough part of the journey. Just that kind of that come down phase of actually the two people who I got this for, they're not here, and I would have loved to have had them there. But it is what it is. Such is life, and in all, the journey was, I think it brought a sense of like healing. It brought a sense of closure as well to that grieving phase of having lost both my parents before the age of 22, 23. And then that kind of closed that phase off. And then obviously when you have your lae, you're ready to tautua and serve.
Right.
And having, I was thinking, of getting the tatau to finish off that phase of my teaching career and to prepare to go into the next phase of my teaching career. And so I'd finished my 2 years at Scott's, got my better done, and then started at my new school. And I think that was a really good way to think about it, like a good way to like, actually, I didn't just get it for show. I didn't get it to go and whakau baki and dance. I got it to serve, and I can serve in the way I best know that I serve, and that's through music, through teaching, and through our culture as well, with our beautiful young people out in Porirua. And so that's my journey in a nutshell. Hopefully that hasn't make you bored, eh?
Oh my gosh, no, bro, not at all. And it actually takes us to my next question, because our culture, you've been bestowed with a mate title, you are a tulafale, you're an orator, in our culture. I know that you have passion and so much love and connection to our culture. As a young, I didn't even want to say as a young mate, because I feel like even though you're young, you're actually wise in years, because I hear my brother living, I hear them talk about you and, your service to the community, to your community there, to your school community. Tell us a little bit about that. Like once, you lost dad, rest in love, and then mum, like you would have had to step up big time, especially after losing dad, to really carry that. Like, what has that been like for you, the journey of, just being an artist, being a matai, tautua as a tula fale? Like,
Mm.
has it been easy? I mean, okay, obviously, being a makai is not easy. Oka. It's probably like, kele saunga mea and, whanotanga a inga, coming together. But what has that journey been like for you? Like, you're still young, but because I'm thinking, man, I remember reading some of your tweets. Sorry, I'll let you answer soon. Like, I remember reading some, just some of your tweets, and I always wonder, what is it like, whaafsanga a inga a, and then do people look at you as there's that young guy, or do they actually give you the respect that you deserve as someone who actually has been told, you've been serving for quite a number of years now. It's not like you just got your Matai title yesterday and then he's speaking out. Like, you've actually been, in the community and in terms of culture involved for a number of years now. So tell us a bit about that. What is that like? Sorry, there were many questions there. But
look, I think it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like, again, the question is trying to uplift and uproot our anganuk and try and go for whangu for easy for whanga. And so I think the really important one is that, my father's titles were Moana and Tuliatu, and they both come from the village of Safune. So Safune, Whaletangaloi, Safune, Savai. But ia wale sol tangarosu male to faoli ia me se foi moana matuli atu ia ngi salu apu ia mana mamalu ia to sa funa matalo new o ia to ai falupuru fao Samoa. The matai itself, like, doesn't matter. Like, I don't I did a lecture on oratory so on I Tautalanga, ma Tautua Upu. I think I tweeted about a week before last.
yes.
But I think the title is just that's just an extra decoration. Cherry cherry on the top, but actually it's the foundation. Like, where's the foundation of your service coming from? And so it started. Actually, the journey towards serving it started actually when Dad passed away. Like what you spoke of, and when Dad passed away, my aunties and it joked around with me, and like, oh yeah, but at the time I was like, hey, what are these guys talking about? What are these guys on about? And then when I realized the deeper meaning of what they were saying is that, lewa okirikama, and then there's no one else to follow. To follow sulile kulanga au vakua to follow in the footsteps, eh? And so I grew up knowing my dad was a hard up, passionate orator in our community in Invercargill. So every time me face se me fasa mo Invercargill, po se asfangau, po se maliu, po se fai poiponga, se maybe a kalanga fingainga o singa fingainga se ava, mafkanga e kalesia. I'd always listen to my dad, and I always go, man, that's cool, man. But I never actually grew up trying to learn it or anything until he passed away, and I realized, man, I have to do some homework, man. Have to do some homework. Have to prepare myself. I always knew I wanted to get the la'i. I always knew I wanted to get the tau. But I knew deep down that I wasn't worthy of that unless I had served through some sort of capacity before I continue to serve in greater capacity through Tautua Upu. And so the Tautua Upu started from there. My first proper time of speaking, the Ngangana Whaamatai, was actually, manual, eh? Like manual, when Metotisi people, the churches go around and they sing, ngaka o e whailako asinga I whale, ma whailako pespesenga I whafo o whale o ngaka. And 2014 was the year Dad passed away, and usually Dad was the one to respond. And so Mum was kind of in a frenzy. She wasn't in a frenzy that she was in her 90 and she was, these people were there looking at us, but she was more in a panic trying to figure out who was going to speak. And then that's when I surprised her. That's when I surprised her with, I just stood up and put my chair in front of me, and that was kind of my strength at that time. And the whole time she was like looking at me like, what are you doing? Like, sit down, like, and I was like, nah, man, I got to do it. Got to do it. And so I did it. As soon as they finished, like, whawhiloa'i with the ekalisia, and then they left, and then she just hit me with the question like, where did you learn that from? I was like, menga mau mai ui kusia, kusia kowhaiongkango wasa, just those little things. And she was like, you got to be careful when you do that whasamo stuff. Like, you got to make sure you know what you're saying, know what you're doing. I was like, yeah, it's all good. Whawhakaya mun whakuanga. I'm trying to, it's part of my journey of learning. And so that's where it really started. The passion for the anganu'u started from there, and for learning the oratory as well, because it's an art, man. It's a true art. Like, I still haven't mastered it 100%. I'm still maybe about 60% of the way there. I'm still taking every opportunity and sitting with elders as much as I can to try and learn and soak up some stuff from them. But as I started going through university, man, it started growing even more. And so the next year, koe o maile mangawao, and then koe kuilunga, and then 2016 again, koe kuilunga and kalia the mangawao. That's when my mum started getting like not suspicious, but more like curious. Hey, like, hey, he's not bad. He's not.
Right.
He's okay. This boy of mine. I thought he was a parangi boy I sent to university. He's a softy man, and those kind of things. And yeah, that's when I realized, Mum, like, now I think is the perfect time to get my tsau. Like, I'm starting to learn, to learn, and I'm gonna keep on learning. But the tsau will help me kind of not lift me up, but it will help push me forward to keep on learning and learning and learning. But you're totally right about the perception of as a young tula fale. Especially in a school environment, when you have your associate meetings with parents, and you have your polyfest whalingas, and you have your fia nights, and you have your Samoan language week stuff with the parents, and they just look at you like, oh, who's this young guy? Like,
who is this guy? What is he?
What's he? Who is he? Like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? And then and once I start to speak to them, that's when they, like, over time, it's taken a long time, man. Like, my second year, and I'm just slowly starting to get people's respect from our community. And make sure makai koe inga, the old ingas who are all makai maululunga whangali. We've got some youngas, we've got some kofilaus, we've got heaps of mailos and heaps of other type of matais, really important ones. But now they're starting to respect you because of your passion and art for the craft of the tautu upu, of oratory. And I'm not 100% gifted with the ability to just speak sweet words and sweet proverbs, but they get it. They get it. You know what I mean? Like, and I know Lisao get it as well. He will understand when, as a young person, and him being a young person, and he's gifted as well. That when you do go to these events, once people start to respect you for your ability to speak, the conversation and the vibe starts to switch.
Right.
Like, they're a bit more relaxed. They're not as uptight and serious as they were beforehand.
They probably look at you like, they probably look at, I guess a lot of our, our elders, it's like you said, perception, right? And it's always that, I feel but then when they start listening to you, and and the way that you speak, and then it's no longer, oh, he's intimidating us, because he, it's that slowly, okay, let's open the way and just let them in, like you said, right? It's just that whole, it's the pride thing as well, and now, amongst Matai and stuff like that, right?
You're totally right, man. Like, I think it's totally the pride. Like, a lot of them pride themselves on the anganu'u, on the ngangana, and it's more so because of it's a mea sina o se mea sina
Yes.
tatu anganu ai mesi fo le ngangana and mai sia leo le afo le va leo matai ai like the relationship and the sacred space between the matai especially o i turanga lea e fe palo ai tau mate fo e ngale they try and fa se e to a matai
Right.
ngase ku you know e ngase ai and then they try on another angle and then they try and like they try it's like a game of chess
Yes.
they're trying to plant things with you to see how you respond and then when you respond this way they'll try and come through another angle to try and get their chess piece across the board and I think that's totally how our the it's definitely my story like that's definitely how I've felt going through this journey of trying to learn the whakamatai and especially at family stuff like I think there's more of a dependence now like it's gone beyond trust it's more like hey Junior we've got a miliu we've got a miliu in here in Invercargill can you please find a way to get here whatnot or Junior there's some family in Wellington that you probably haven't met before but you need to go take a sosoani on our behalf other things like Junior so and so is on their deathbed someone's on their last legs and so we need to make sure we go do a whātoi singa and koe iu fo'i ngā and I think the journey itself has been educating like it's taught me a lot I know I've been able to somehow teach something to some other people but for me it would not have been where it is now without my students actually forcing me to reflect on my understanding of the anganu'u, to reflect on the practice of the anganu'u, and to also think of how we can make it more relevant to the young people. I porua po Aotearoa fo'i, because ele whāpei, o le anganu'u Samoa, it's se lau pesene I nei, the same as here. No, it's we have our own version of the Samoa here in Aotearoa, not 100% different, but it's just a little bit different. But the whāwae of the Samoa is still the same. I me leo le whāroalo o le alofa, le tausi wā, tausi whengainga, tausi matua, tautua ainga, tautua upu, tautua matawela, maisi tuainga, tautua. So thinking of all those different ways that we can serve through oratory in our families, in our schools, our villages, our churches as well, and our houses as well.
Risa, so you mentioned earlier, so you were like a guest lecturer or guest speaker at a recently at Victoria. I mean, is that some with the Samoan? You did a Samoan oratory paper there. Is that something that you would like to get into? Doing these guest spots and teaching in the community. Is that something that you're kind of like leaning towards? On top of everything else you're doing, because I remember reading, you were tweeting about it, and I thought, it's cool just to, something you're passionate about, and to be able to do that outside of, I mean, you've said it is a form of education, not just for you as someone learning, but to be able to kind of like share some of that knowledge and experience with, the youth coming, students coming through who are probably just a few years younger than you. Like, do you want to go into something like that, or?
No, that's a really good question, Malori. I don't want to it's I was talking to the lecturer afterwards, and he goes, "Man, like we'd really love to have you here, like as a lecturer, a second lecturer for the paper as well, and he could focus on his other admin jobs for the other papers, Samoa papers at Victoria University." And I was actually considering. I was like, "Man, it's a good gig. Like it's a good experience. Not gig in terms of money making or anything, because the salaries there are pretty, but." It would be for me. It's like you said. It's the passing on the feeling of having done our culture some sort of justice and good, and trying to pass it and impart it onto younger people. I know we work really hard on our young kids at our school, especially with the Samoa stuff and the Ngangana Samoa NCA program. But to see them be able to go to university and flourish because they've had the foundation built from school. I think that's probably what's going to keep me at school level, at secondary level, instead of worrying too much of, oh, actually, I like the guest appearances. You know, I could do the guest lecture here and there, and that, like, it's an awesome vibe, man. Like, going to university, it reminds me of when I was at university. Like, man, these lectures are cool, man. Shout out to Graham Downs at Otago. But yeah, like, I think I would stick with secondary school teaching. But I'd love to just like make the guest appearance maybe once a trimester here at Victoria and just show face. And for some kids, I'll be a new face, but then for the kids who have seen me on one or two more occasions, they'll be like, "Oh, we know what this guy's like." And so I think that would be something that I would lean towards.
Nice.
I'm not
You
too sure
know,
if I'll do it soon though, but yeah, it'd definitely be something that I'm keen to just make a guest appearance rather than a full-time thing. Because any time to research.
you know, like I know that you've got a lot of highlights, reflecting on your 4 years thus far. But very well that as educators, we have those highlights that really they're precious, but there are also a lot of challenges.
Mhm.
What are the challenges? I want to say for Pasifika educators, but then just because usually in schools you're the go-to, if you're a Samoan or you're a Tongan teacher or you're the go-to, or if you're the Maori teacher, you're the go-to. So I guess for our Pacific Islanders, educators, what are some of the challenges without kind of like I'm not, I guess in general, I'm not like trying to throw you or point to a particular school or anything like that, but what are some of the challenges that you see for Pasifika educators in New Zealand, and just from your experience, or perhaps even networking and connecting with other Pasifika, educators?
Yeah, I mean, before I answer that, like, I think it's really important to make a shout out to all our Pasifika educators out there, because, man, the number of Pasifika educators that are coming through the system at the moment is awesome, man. Like, it's awesome to feel like we're not the only ones. And you were probably in the generation that you were like the one spot, though. Where's Wally?
Yeah.
You know, where's the brown person, the brown teacher for that matter?
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, just a huge shout out and huge mihi to all our fams out there who are grinding for the good of our people and the betterment of our people. I think for challenges, some of the tough challenges is you're totally right. Like, it's that dependency that that institutions have of or on Pasifika teachers, especially like, oh, we got language weeks, push to Brown. Hey, push to the Brown teacher, because they're going to be so young, fresh, and energetic and vibrant enough to be enthusiastic to take this up. Another one would be, let's overexploit these guys, and then when it comes to them and their well-being, we'll just hide. Like, so many Pasifika teachers out there do labor out of love. It's a labor of love teaching. They'll do endless hours. They'll do endless hours of poly rehearsals, endless hours of mentoring, endless hours of trying to do all this assessment for Polyfest as well, because we're doing that as a dance assessment. Other teachers out there will be doing school extracurricular trips, like sports trips. I know some of the boys, the Pasifika brothers teaching in Christchurch, they're doing a lot of the Polyfest in the summer, like Auckland, but also having to do volleyball and also manage rugby, and then also managing their teaching, But then, the challenge is the fact that they're doing all their mahi but not being acknowledged. Another challenge is that, man, the journey to leadership as well is tough. Like, our kids need to see role models beyond teachers in schools. Like, they can't just have an awesome school of 30 Pasifika teachers and then get to the deputy principal for a discipline hearing and it's a board panel of Pākehā. Like, they need to see, Brown excellence, Brown leadership, Brown or Pasifika leadership, Pasifika governance and guidance and mentorship. they need to see their identities and themselves reflected in the systems as well, because knowing from firsthand experience that a lot of the current judiciary systems and places at schools, not only disciplinary but also in sport for incidents in rugby or any code, it's a very Eurocentric system, very much like the court system. If a kid was to go into the court, but as a teacher, as a Pasifika teacher, we can't let our kids experience that, because then we'd be preparing them and giving them a taste of what the school thinks that they should experience as adults. And I think that's a big challenge, is trying to move this push to brown mindset away, B, having more Pasifika educators acknowledged by promotions into positions of leadership in schools and receiving support and training, but also C, well-being. Like, well-being is really important, and a lot of our Pasifika teachers, like I said, labor of love, but mind first, family first, self first. I think I saw someone's tweet the other day in response to one of my tweets, who said, "You can't serve with an empty vessel."
Yeah.
You can't serve with an empty vessel, and for so many Pasifika teachers, you'll understand that we serve regardless of how we feel. We just bite the bullet and just go hard. Anything to make the kids smile. But a lot of other people, it's sad that the other 50% of educators, they don't think like that. I think that's the big challenge for me is, man, there's the minority of us. There's the we're already marginalized as Pasifika. Yeah, and then as Pasifika educators, even more so marginalized. And then also, we're told we're given barriers by systems, by processes, by people in positions of leadership who don't like change,
Right.
or don't like listening to the voice of our communities and our parents, when that's what matters most. But yeah, those are just some of the challenges that I can think of as a young Pasifika, as a person who's like 4 years into teaching. That's man, we've had heaps of challenges, man. Like,
Yeah.
and you would have had heaps and heaps of challenges in not only in your time in Auckland, but also in Japan. The language barrier, the culture barrier. But yeah, I'd actually be interested to know what challenges you had. You are having.
I'll get to that in a minute. I just wanted to just say, it's interesting listening to your answers, because you covered three things that I was going to ask you about later, like, in terms of mental health and well-being. And the reason why I asked that question is because when we recently connected in Auckland, and I was so inspired by what you were sharing in terms of your journey, but I really came away from it. And I said to my brother, man, I'm so worried. You're just you have so many gems. You have so much to give to your school, to just young people as an educator. But I really came away just thinking, I don't want anything to happen to Sammy. I don't want you to lose that passion. I don't want you to get to a breaking point where you're just like, I've had enough, because too often that happens to Pasifika teachers. I'm speaking from experience. It wasn't till I came here that I really started to love teaching again, and not, do you know what I mean? And so, I just, when I know that you're doing all these, and you're probably like, there are probably Pasifika teachers all over New Zealand, in the same predicament, in the same situation, where you just go 200% all the time. It's not a job that ends. It's not a job that starts at 8 and ends at 3:30. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone, where you get to that point where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I just need to go on a sabbatical or something. But like, even what you mentioned, like, I have to question, like, at what point, Matariki, Samoan Language Week, our languages, our Pasifika languages, the weeks, like all these important celebrations in our schools, at what point does it become a collab effort where all teachers, regardless of whether you are Pasifika or Palangi at what point does the school say we're going to do this together because we are, that's collegiality, right? That's what you do. You look at, oh, okay, there's Sammy, he needs help. Not just, okay, let's just leave him because he's a Samoan teacher, therefore he should carry that whole burden. Like, at what point should a school actually say, we need to come together? And I think a big part of that is because it's just, who are we seeing? Like you've already alluded to, who are we seeing, at the top there? Who are the people making the decisions? Who are the people on the board? I mean, board of trustees probably do have Pasifika voices, Polynesian voices on there, which is great. Representation is everything, right? In the classrooms, amplifying student voice, it's important. Amplifying Pasifika educator voice is super important. But there are, like you said, there are limitations. It's almost like checkbox, right? Which is something I absolutely hate, where people know what needs to be done, but they're only going to check a box if it means they're going to get an approval to then move to the next thing, without actually going, hang on a minute, let us actually sit down and let's look at the bigger picture. Let's chat about this. Let's have these uncomfortable conversations, right? So I guess I'm kind of moving into, my experiences here, and I just don't like checkboxes. If there is a review happening, like, I want to be able to have conversations where we're considering all our learners in the classroom, not just our high achievers, but really, there's a stigma against, our learning support, students who need learning support, students who are ESOL students, who take English as a second language. There's a stigma around that. And I just, there's challenges where you have a group of educators who are putting learner needs at the forefront, of planning, of conversation. And then there's people who have been teaching for a very long time who really just like to tick boxes, because and also feel that it's not their responsibility to think about things like equity and inclusion and representation and amplifying student voice, and thinking about the importance of mother tongue and the languages that students are speaking in their homes. That it's a whole big, like, cycle of things, right? A pool of things that you're just kind of like picking and choosing what you want to talk about, what you want to, I don't want to say fix, but what you want to kind of, like, I guess, invest your time in as an educator. I know I'm kind of like, I don't know if any of this makes sense, but I like how you answered that question, because it just, it really had me thinking, yeah, actually, when I think about when I was in New Zealand, absolutely, everything you're saying, it makes sense. And even if it is a principal who is, I guess, leans towards the Pasifika side of things, still, that it's still a dominant culture person that's in charge. Do you know what I mean? And seeing role models in those high positions, it's important. But when that will happen, I know some schools do have Pasifika people in leadership, but then part of that worries me is that, whose agenda are they pushing? Because it could be a brown person, a teacher of color at who was leading, but they could seriously be pushing Eurocentric ideas. They could be they could be the poster child for the board of trustees or for the admin team, to just say, we've checked the box, we have a teacher of color there. But let's just but let us just continue to not talk about the elephant in the room. I know I'm rambling a bit, but I don't know if any of that makes sense. I mean, that's like my experience here. I mean, definitely, yeah. Like, I do a lot of reflection. Like, I always do a lot of reflection, thinking back to New Zealand, and in terms of how I've developed more and grown and evolved as an educator. I've been very lucky to just have opportunities here to be able to have a voice, even though, as you know, our people, we really sit back and we listen and we choose the right time to speak, right? But you know, that has helped me, like being here, being able to have a voice and try and express myself a bit more. You just those spaces, and trying to find those safe spaces here is something that we're learning about and trying to do in school, not just in the classroom, but definitely amongst uh, departments. You know, when we have these meetings and faculty meetings. I've gone right off track.
No,
Back to you. I don't know if any of that makes sense.
no, that makes 100% sense. Yeah, no, I like what you're saying, because you're totally right though, that if there are people of our community in those positions that, you know, you know, look back with gratitude, look back with what's gotten you to where you are, look back and don't bite the hand that feeds you, you know, that kind of mindset of actually you are there to serve the people who got you there. Don't go into that position and then forget totally, you know, what got you there, who got you there, what experiences got you there, what people of influence got you there. You know, like just some people go in there and then they realize, oh shucks, what agenda can I push? Can I push my agenda? Can I push the school's agenda? Do I want to push a Eurocentric agenda? Or do I want to push an Aotearoa lens agenda? I don't know. But like you're totally right that some people, they'll end up in those positions of authority and influence and then totally forget what got them there. And I think that's like you, I think that's my biggest fear, is that, you know, if there was to be one day a principal came asking, oh, do you mind being the you know, deputy principal for so and so, I'd have to take a very, very long time to think about it. I'd have to take a hard look at myself in the mirror. I'd have to have that chat with the people that matter to me, and just to reaffirm that that would be something that is reflective of me. You know, that's who I am, or it's what I'm destined for. It's what I'm called for. I wouldn't just do it and then be like those other ones who would go in there and just the power gets to them.
Right.
I think I've seen too many examples of that where people are like, they love the title, but then they don't walk the actions, eh? They don't walk the talk, the actions. And our people, like I know in Porirua, actions matter. And I'm not sure what it's like elsewhere in the world, but especially in Porirua, our families, at least the last thing they want is to be going to a parent-teacher interview and then hearing someone just ramble on to them about how naughty their child is, or
Right.
you know, or whatever, this and that, or about their own life story. But actually, what matters most is my child learning something? Is my child happy? You know, for us, but as Pasifika people of influence, as teachers, like we do have a sense of, like you said, whāaloalo, like people are whāaloalo to us as teachers, families are. They have a big deal of whāaloalo for us, and as uncomfortable as it is, it brings with it a whole big sense of responsibility, eh? Bit of responsibility and accountability check as well sometimes. Like, actually, I'm not doing enough, or we're not doing this enough, or we're not tailoring or catering for this student enough. But yeah, using that position as a teacher, just as a teacher, to try and bring about something positive for our kids and their families. Because the last thing, you know, I always talk to the parents and they always say, "Ona me ka ua, i ngā awengi muri a ua u lau whāngau." Don't say that my kids don't follow me. I don't want them to follow me having to work, you know, night shift, excessive hours, ridiculous hours to try and scrape through and make sure that there's a roof over their head and that there's food on the table and clothes on their back and a school uniform as well. And that's really sad. It's really sad that some people forget that, that man, there are more things in life than someone's behavior, than someone's, you know, getting a not achieved, someone getting achieved. And and that's not to say that the people who are the high flyers in academia, they don't have, you know, that's not to say they don't have struggles. They have a story to tell as well. But making sure that whatever Pasifika person or Polynesian person or person of color in a position of power understands that actually every person that they interact with or are responsible for has a story. and every person under their watch, like a deputy principal watching teachers. Each teacher has a story as well that they bring with them.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you're speaking, I was thinking about obviously I understand that I have a sense of privilege here. I'm working at an international school, a private school, and I think that many times I hear utterances, people saying comments that blaming the student, because there's this whole you got to be high, grades are important. I mean, you would know this when you were at Scots College, right? As an IB school. So, I think grade driven and that kind of stuff. I think it's so easy as educators to forget that we do have students who may not want to go to college, may not want to go to university, may be a real hands-on learner. Maybe someone who just wants to take a gap year, like it's students have shared stories where it's just that constant pressure, and I feel like students, people, this perception of Japanese students as just like everything is done by the book. They're just like high achievers, or just Asian students in general. There are so many misconceptions, and I see it, and some of my students, just that the struggle to kind of like meet the expectations of the parents, and it's such a worry. It just, I think teenagers, regardless of where they are in the world, the teenagers, students will be students. Obviously different different scenarios in terms of like culture and things like that, and ethnic background that can also have an effect on opportunities and things like that for our students. But it's just, I'm always reflecting on when I hear some of my students talking, and they have issues just like other kids their age who may be in a different part of the world. I think as educators, I mean, it's, we're coming home to New Zealand and everything seems so normal. And then returning back here and thinking, wow, the pandemic is we're still in the middle of this. It's still going on. We're going back to school in a few weeks. I worry about my students coming back, have they been stuck inside all summer, that kind of stuff, right? So anyways, I'm rambling a bit, but I think, I just think that it's so easy as educators just to forget, that young people are also, going through things. And yeah. Anyways, I wanted to, I know you're a sports person, you play rugby. And you did some coaching. Was it with the New Zealand Maori girls team or something like that, eh?
So I play rugby still. Still play club rugby, and for me, like in terms of well-being, that's my well-being go-to. That's my outlet. Regardless of how annoying and how much I would say about like, oh man, it's annoying, the cold nights on a Tuesday and Thursday, the long Saturdays, going early in the morning and then coming home late. But actually, that's definitely been my saving grace. Has been rugby. The time, just that time away for me. Even if it is 80 minutes of a rugby game, just those few hours and those moments together with those guys for that 3 days a week, to just get away from work. And I think that's been really, 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 really positive. Another one has been, I think, with that coaching gig with the New Zealand Māori, I think that's really taught me just how important identity is. I love that talk about identity. I love the talk about language and culture. And in terms of the Maoli, our tangata whenua here, they're going through some of the same struggles as we are, not worse. A lot of those kids, they'll walk in not knowing their pepeha. They'll walk in because everyone has to introduce themselves. They, who am I, why, their pepeha, and some of them won't. They'll walk in not knowing who they are. They'll know that I heard I'm Māori, or I heard I'm part Māori, but I'm just grateful to be at this camp and grateful to be playing sevens for the New Zealand Māori. And I think that experience has really taught me, man, these guys are going through a lot, just in terms of challenges to try and keep the language and the culture alive, but also just to have kids like that, because they're teenagers, man. They're under 18-year-old, they're 18 years old, most of them. Just for them to have the confidence to leave after that week in camp, preparing for that tournament, just to leave and say, actually, man, I'm Hati Māori. I love being Māori. And all it is using rugby to help koe whawhango fo ile lako lako mofa mana lako ngau i le kumaleanga whangoa mese fo ile ngā wha Māori ai. So just trying to find some sort of way to empower them. And yeah, like there's a saying that it's beyond, it's more than a game. It's more than people running around, throwing a rugby ball around, trying to score tries and tackle each other. For some of those kids, it's the struggle. It's a good struggle for them to overcome their own struggles, mental struggles, cultural struggles, identity struggles. But also, it's a good way to be physically fit as well. It's that, if anything, but then also making sure that their mental comes first. And we're real big on that. We have, the way we do our camps is we always have 2 trainings a day. We have karakia in the morning, then parakuihi, breakfast, and then we usually have a morning session followed by a lunch session, followed by an afternoon session, and then followed by a bit of team bonding, bit of what they call like whakawhanaungatanga, so like team bonding relationships. But then actually for some of them, that's where they start to reveal themselves. Like, actually, I'm not strong in my culture. I'm not strong, and I'm not proud to say I'm a person trying to figure out who I am as a Māori and as tangata whenua. But if anything, that's what that coaching gig has taught me. That these kids, man, like once they leave and they have that confidence to say, man, they have the confidence to hongi properly. Because man, some of the hongis that you get, man, straight. Some of them miss the hongi totally and just smack foreheads. Some of them don't do a hongi at all. Some of them do the awkward, in or out. But like then at the end of the week, they're so confident and comfortable and used to doing it that they're able to say, man, I'm Māori and I know how to hongi, I know how to play footy, and I'm proud to have played footy and put on the Māori All Blacks jersey as well.
Masalo lawa le leila wha Māori a.
Nā leila, go whaisi vai o ngā
Okay, bro. Book recommendations. I mean, have you read something recently that you enjoyed? Do you have a book in mind that you think perhaps some of our audience members might be interested? Or even like a favorite book? Yeah. Do you have any?
Book. I'm just trying to think. There's heaps out there, eh? Like there's heaps of stuff out there. If anything, like I've read this book called Seven's Heaven by Ben Ryan, and I'm not sure what we're set here, but le mamalu tato alfa.
Hey, is he the Fijian coach?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly him. And so it's definitely him. So like his book Seven's Heaven, and reflecting on his journey with the Fiji Sevens team. Preparing for Rio in 2016, took heaps of learnings out of that, because man, it's like teaching. He used to be a PE teacher in England. He was teaching PE, and he had played a bit of rugby, represented rugby growing up, and then he was their first 15 coach for their school that was playing in like Division 3 or 4 or something in some rural countryside there. Then he ended up taking up this coaching gig with England, and then was playing for England for a wee while and coaching, and then eventually went on to apply for the job at Fiji. And so like the story he tells people is something of like he must have got the boot from England Rugby Union, or the rugby union that they claim themselves as, and then applied for the Fiji job, but because he didn't realize that the timing was different. The Fiji time versus the Palangi time. Yeah, not time zone. Right. He was the Fiji time, the Suva time he calls it, versus the normal, the Western time. And so he was saying that his schedule, his interviews over, I think it was some Skype call, was scheduled for something like Fiji 3 p.m. or something like that. And in the UK, they were like 12 or 11 hours behind. And so he was like up 3 in the morning or something like that, waiting for this interview. And then about 2-3 hours after waiting, then they decided to pick up this. And so, like, for me, man, that's an awesome lesson in itself. That
Yeah.
this guy was going into this thing like, okay, I'm going in with my Western European lens, Balangi lens. I expect these people to be on time if they expect me to be on time. But then he gets there and he's left hanging for 2 to 3 hours. And that was the first of his learnings. And he's got so many nuggets of gold in that book. Like, one of the things that I really liked was how he invested in learning the language, albeit rugby terminology, but the fact that those players who hardly spoke any English were able to connect with him when he would use the Fijian terms in the language. The Fijian language in his address to them at halftime or before games or after games. Another one is that he was so hardworking in terms of trying to get those players from their area in Fiji, in Viti level, or Vanua level, and trying to get them to a single training session to be all there on time at the same time. Like that guy, he had a manager who actually used to be an old Scots college boy himself, and he talks about that, how this manager of his would drive their like big shanty bus around the island to pick up all the boys, starting at like maybe 2 a.m., picking up all the boys from around the island to make sure that they're all at Suva National Park to train, ready for their sevens competitions. And so, like, if anything, that's been an awesome book that I loved reading. I think I read that maybe 3 years ago when I first started coaching rugby, when I first started teaching as well at Scots. And man, it was just like, whoa, this is the reason. This makes me want to coach not only rugby but rugby sevens as well. And it's also given me the long-term goal. I think I've tweeted about it before, but my long-term goal is to go to the Olympics one day with the sevens team, or even go through a qualification process with a team. Don't care what country it is, small or big, but I'd love to go there one day just because of this one book by Ben Ryan.
Inspirational. Yeah, I was going to say, is that you, future, I don't know, New Zealand Māori All Black coach Manu Samoa Kami? I don't know. Like, there's limits to where rugby coaching could take you, bro.
No, what's his name? The Muliangatili, Bradley Ma is doing an awesome job.
In terms of teaching and your career goals, you know, do you want to be a principal one day? Are you aspiring to be that, or do you see yourself as what is career goals?
Yeah, I haven't really thought of like big major career goals. I think like definitely getting to a position of like maybe like I'm privileged to be in a position of head of department at the moment of music and performing arts at our school. Also privileged to have been given opportunity to coach our girls rugby team as well, and also running a whole heap of different things with Polly and extra stuff at our school. But I think one of the major goals for me is to one day to sit at the decision making table. Like I want to actually, the last thing I want to see, like you said earlier and alluded to earlier, is the last thing I want to see is Pasifika teachers just give up because of the daunting realization that, oh man, is this what I'm doing for the next 20, 30 years of my life? Grinding 6 a.m. to 6, 7 p.m. every day of my life. But actually being at that decision-making table where our voices can be heard and that our people can be taken care of and that the students aren't getting a cranky teacher in front of them because they have enough rest or they're feeling frustrated or not listened to. And so definitely being a decision maker of some sort, whether it be a pastoral role or an academic role, maybe a head of academic area of a school, or even just being a head of pastoral for families, bringing in, creating some sort of system to bring families into our school, and families confidently walking into a school and going, this is our school. I think that's definitely one of the major goals is one day I want families to be able to walk into the school confident and go, man, this is our school. Like, this is our school for our kids. It's as much our school as it is these teachers' school.
Right.
And if a family can do that, then that's a big job. Not ticked off like your checklist, but it's a major stepping stone to a positive future for education. In terms of the other goals, like the coaching goals, like I'm always going to be coaching, whether I do make it to the Olympics one day as a 60, 70-year-old coaching like Gordon Sitchins, or I think that's another major goal. But I think like at the moment, I just want to enjoy teaching and being the hard worker on the ground at the moment while I can. Eventually, when I get a little bit older, a little bit weaker, then I'll take a step back and start to consider other options. But definitely, major goals is probably to be able to make some sort of influence on our families to encourage them to come into our schools more comfortably and confidently, being in that decision-making table.
And then music, I know, are you dropping an EP or something? I know you like do some recording here. I mean, I know you're a choir director and you know you're a musician. Are you dropping an EP? Is there something you wanna reveal to the audience before we let you go? Because so I can say exclusive.
No, like to be honest, like the thing I'm grateful for like being a teacher is that man, we're so grateful we get school holidays and my old HOD of music at Scots College, he always used to tell me school holidays are for teachers, not for students. You know, it's a chance for you to rewind, refresh, reflect, relax. And in terms of what we were just talking about, you know, like that's really allowed me to not only reflect on who I am, but actually who I am as a musician as well. You know, I've started writing a new musical for our school to hopefully do next year, and it's coming along like pretty good. And we're starting to collaborate with other staff. And if I hadn't had the time to just have the school holidays to be able to sit back and actually enjoy spending 5-6 hours at a mixing desk in the keyboard, recording and experimenting with different sounds, then I probably would lose the passion for music. Like I wouldn't be as passionate as I am now with music. And so yeah, no major EPs coming soon. A school music coming soon though. It's called a new dawn, is what it's called, or Te Ao Full. And we're hoping to drop that at some point next year, mid to late next year. Get our kids up there on stage telling a story of a kid from our school, and what the experience is like going through our school, the ups and downs of teenagehood, but also the end product being them leaving one confident person in the identities as a Pasifika kid from Porirua. But actually, another one is that man, HRPP Loki stole my.
I saw the tweet. I was like, copyright that, Sammy. Copyright that, man.
I'm pretty sure I put it online during Samoan Language Week last year or something, and like, whoa, like it sounds ugly, but they still used it in their promotion propaganda. So, ui, kako kama tu la pasole mga.
Oh, that's so funny, man.
Used it in the background while the man was doing his fancy kaukalanga about, you know, was solia le whaavae mo kalepe lea mea ongo le. I thought, oh yeah. Mange, because lai whai mai lako sa ngoanga I kongo le video, lai ba soli leanga le copyright la.
You got get that, man. I saw that tweet. I was laughing. I was like, oh my God. Wow. Not anyone can just say that.
Yeah, that's not the first time, because the first time was actually Fast, the Fast Party. They used it at the roadshow.
Yeah.
So for their roadshow promo videos, they were using that Lawa Kia song and Ole Whanata Vili cover.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, could you guys like at least ask me to do something else? Like, because man, that sounds ugly as.
They're probably like, hey, this is Wayno 3.0.
Wayno 3.0. Get out of Invercargill, man.
Man, my Lord lover Sammy, honestly, you know, I'll hand it over to you soon. We like to end the show, you know, with just some words of wisdom and encouragement from our guests. But I just, you know, thank you so much just for coming on the show. You know, this is our 20th episode, and I'm just absolutely stoked that it's you, bro, that you were able to come and share your journey. I'm looking forward to dropping the exclusive on your musical next year. You know, and I honestly, I'm in awe of the work that you're doing, bro. I really admire what you're doing in your school. You wear so many hats. I'm surprised you don't have a sore head. you do so many things, and then you're also involved outside of school in the community, and you know that's super inspirational, bro. And you're only in your 4th year of teaching. You know, my from Alosi to you, bro, is you know, you can't be of help to anyone if you're not good, look after yourself. You are so important to many people who probably don't even realize how important you are in the community and in terms of school life and the learning environment. So I will continue to follow your journey and just see you do great things. But look after yourself because you just there's something special there, bro. I it's super inspirational. So please, you know, um, self-care, making more music for fast and HRPP, whatever it is that makes you happy, that brings you some kind of peace. I'm sure mom and dad are just super proud of where you are now in life, and you're still, you're still only in your fourth year of teaching, so don't let the job wear you out. Don't let the job take your joy and happiness and passion away, because um I just see you doing so many more great things in the future. So thank you again for coming through. I'm really humbled and just so honored to have you here. And age is nothing when it comes to teaching, because I think, as you've alluded to already, as we've already talked about, the experiences we share, similar experiences and frustrations, and we face many challenges. As Pasifika teachers, as teachers of color. So keep grinding, keep doing what you got to do. Um, yeah, I'll hand it over to you just for our final words of wisdom, and thank you for your book recommendation. I'm gonna go and download it after
Yeah,
this.
you gotta read it, man. You gotta read it. Nah, thank you very much. Whaftai te limuni a wanoa, Rosa, e tu saima tatou mafutanga ni tu la fiafi. Yeah, tatonu ia lea ua tau si ui lau le wha moe moe. Yeah, tatou sura la le vi inga mana whaftai le tua lea ua tatou au lia mana manuia le I unga ne fo I wha moe moe. Whaftai te limu le a wanoa whaaro e mawhai ana ta whaafsoai me se fo I sola pule fo I e tu saima manisi o vaenga o le tā o langa a whaafai aonga. Yeah, and also thank you for just the opportunity just to be able to share. I think like a lot of teachers, like you said before, Pasifika teachers particularly, we bottle things up. We're not people to vent. We're not people to just go and go and speak to someone and go, we will just bottle something up. But I think this has really been awesome for me to just be able to just open up a little bit. It's brought about a sense of healing as well. Just being able to sit here and reflect for an hour and 40 minutes. Like amidst all the busyness of what's going on in my life and your time in quarantine, just being able to have this time if I start Taranawanga. So thank you very much, Rosa. I think if there's something that I want to try and pass on to everyone is it's watch who you surround yourself with. I think who you surround yourself with is really important. You can have loyalties to people, you'll have loyalties to institutions and groups, but at the end of the day, it's those within your inner circle, whether it be family, whether it be close friends. Make sure you surround yourself with the right people. Surrounding yourself with the right people might not necessarily be your best friends. Surrounding yourself with the right people might be people who you like, who push you to try and be better. It might be your enemies. It might be people who challenge you, who try and get the best out of you. And that's never going to be easy. And that in rough times there will always be a place of calm and rest somewhere, like whangalele, so I think that's probably one thing I want to share with our listeners and our family out there, our educators out there as well. Fam, we got this, man. We got this. Just keep grinding, but make sure you surround yourself with the right people who will challenge you to be the best you can be, but also will be mindful of your well-being as well and support you on your journey and making sure that you don't feel alone. I think that's all I want to share, Rosa. Whaftai te limuni av noa, tāpile while li ima, tāpi fo ile fo manusina, ia lofo le tua, tu il tātou wā, you know, may God bless you and your journey as well, waiting to get out of quarantine, back into society, seeing humans again, and seeing your beautiful students in Japan again. And also send my love to ALO back in Auckland, and to Tina as well. And also le sunga le whawhengainga i Nelly, ono na wharetua i Bama, me se whole no fo ALO. And also all our Pasifika educators out there, Twitter fans, keep on keeping, mans. And I just want to make a big shout out to my partner as well, to Sina, who has seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of this teaching journey. And if anything, that's probably something I missed before. Just the importance of making sure you surround yourself with the right people, but that, you know, ele se tangata e pito sili ona lei, nei lo se tangata e tua iai mai pito iai pito sili ai ona au lei. So Sina,
much
her.
love, Sina. Much love to Sina. You know, we see you. You know, your support is so important to our brother here, and just the work that he's doing. So much love, sis. Yeah. Thank you, Sammy.
To her as well, and also to my sisters in Invercargill, my 5 sisters. You know, I can't imagine what life would have been if it weren't for them, getting me to where I am now. But also my parents as well. Pay homage to them. Mum and Dad, hope you guys are proud and not arguing and bickering up there in the skies, but that you guys are proud of us and where we are at the moment in our lives. Thank you, Rosa.